Hi, this is Fred from the Tactical Workshop, and today we're going to talk about fixed bayonets and using the Albuera game. In this first video, we're going to talk about how to read the playing pieces, the map, and the charts. Alright, we'll start with the infantry. This is an infantry battalion. It's the 1st battalion of the 48th Foot. It's a British infantry battalion. That particular unit is part of the 2nd Division 6th Brigade. The colors that you see here are the same as the colors on the belt here, and the same as the colors of the leader of that particular formation. So that helps you identify which unit is part of which formation. That leader commands all the units with those colored belts. The factors on the unit start here with the skirmish modifier. It's over a green box that denotes it's an infantry unit. The second value here is the combat value. For infantry, that combat value is fire, a fire value. The very important value here is the TEM. In the game, TEM stands for training, experience, and morale. This determines if a unit passes a morale check or any kind of proficiency check that it would have to take during the game. And finally, this value here over a gray box is the movement factors of the unit. That's the default number of movement points that the unit can use to move. That can be modified by weather, unit status, and so forth. The three buttons on top here show the number of steps that the units have. Those steps represent the number of men. Each button, each dot here represents between 200 and 300 men, depending on the quality of the unit. Now, when the unit takes a step loss, then you just flip it to its backside. It's got one less step. The value, some of the values might have changed because of the manpower reduction. And now the fire value, the combat value here, is over a red box, which denotes that the unit has taken a step loss. It's not at full strength anymore. Now, as you can notice, this unit has still 2 steps, so when that unit takes one more step loss, it needs to be replaced by its equivalent counter here, which is 48th Regiment of Foot 1st Battalion, but only 1 step. And now you notice that the skirmish modifier is 0, fire value dropped to 1, and the morale now dropped to 5, or the TEM dropped to 5 due to the losses. Now, if that unit takes one final step loss, when you flip it, you get the skull, which means that this particular counter is removed from the game after taking that last step loss. Now, some small infantry units, such as this light infantry company from the 60th Royal Americans, have a different backside. Now, this is shown by the green movement factor here. That means that when you flip that counter, you do not find one less step. In that case, it would be a skull because it's a single step unit. But you find the unit in skirmish screen formation. Now, when it's flipped back, it's in normal close order formation. It's got a fire value here. The R denotes the fact that the unit is equipped with rifles. When it is flipped, it loses its fire value and now solely has a skirmish modifier, also with the exponent R for the rifles. So those are light companies that can deploy in skirmish screen formation. Now, some combat units are poorly trained. This is denoted by the red TEM factor that you can see here. This applies to infantry, but also cavalry and artillery. In a further video, we'll explain what being poorly trained causes. Alright, now let's take a look at a cavalry unit. This is the 2nd Hussars from the French Army in Albuera. As you can see, this unit is part of the La Tour Maubourg division and the Light Brigade from that division. It's got 4 steps. Combat value of 9. Now for cavalry, this is a charge value. Cavalry usually doesn't fire. They use the charge to attack the enemy. The TM is 8, and we have a movement factor of 15. Now, as for the light infantry company that we saw before, this number is in green, which means that that particular cavalry unit can deploy in skirmish formation. Now, when you deploy a cavalry unit in skirmish formation, you do not flip the counter, because the counter actually here has one less step. You simply put the counter straddling between 2 axes, or you can also place a skirmish screen marker on it to better see that it's deployed in that formation. The last factor on the cavalry unit is the recall factor that you can see here with an R over a yellow background. That differentiates cavalry from infantry that has a green background here, and artillery that has a red background under the top value there. Now, some special cavalry units are classified as shock cavalry. That's indicated by the white movement factor here. And finally, we have some units that are armed with a lance, and that's shown by the L here. The third type of unit is the artillery unit. Artillery unit is a single step unit that represents up to 8 guns. When you flip the unit shows a cannon on its backside. This is the unit in its unlimbered state. The front side shows the unit being limbered, unable to fire but able to move. Factors on an artillery unit are the range or caliber, for the game it's equivalent, TEM, movement factor. Here it's a horse artillery unit, so you got a horse's head behind the movement factor. When you flip it, it's unlimbered, ready to fire. Still a range factor here. That's basically how far it can fire. A combat value, which is a fire value for artillery, TEM still. And then replacing the movement factor is a limber value here, because the artillery cannot really move when it's unlimbered. It has to limber first, and basically you have to roll a die and equal or under that value to a limbered unit. Now, artillery units are associated with a train unit, artillery train unit. Now, a train unit is a non-combat unit, and its purpose is to supply artillery with ammunition for offensive fire. A train unit is going to have the same caliber as the artillery unit, so 6 here and 6 here. The 3 cannonballs here show that that's a train unit. It's got a TEM value pretty low. It's a non-combat unit after all, and a movement value here. The backside of a train unit shows the same unit but with low ammunition, which means that it's one step closer from being removed from the game due to lack of ammunition. Finally, for the counters, here is a sample of leader counters. We got a French division commander, a Spanish army leader, 3 stars, a British brigade general. This is an aide-de-camp, and this is another brigadier for the French dragoons here. Now, the values of leader counters, in the silver hexagon, you have the range, the command range. Now, when it's red, that means the leader cannot be replaced. If it's killed, it cannot be replaced by another leader. If it's yellow, it means an army leader that can issue orders. If it's green, it means it can be replaced at any time by itself. Basically, it's replaced by a similarly ranked leader. When it's an A, it means it's an aide-de-camp. There is another type of leader, that's a staff leader, it's got an S here. And then when it's white, it's basically a regular leader with normal range. The second factor, very important, is the strategy rating. The strategy rating allows you to interrupt other leaders, implement orders, and so forth. If it's green, that means that the leader has a flexible initiative. A black number is a regular strategy rating, and the red one means that that leader cannot use initiative and cannot interrupt other leaders. It's restricted. Third value here in the TEM box, this is the TEM modifier. That's what the leader is gonna use to modify any TEM check that's performed by a unit stacked with him. The movement factor is in the gray box as usual. And here in top right corner, you have little colored boxes that indicate tactical modifier for cavalry in yellow, infantry in green, and if there was an artillery leader here, there would be a red box for an artillery tactical modifier. We'll explain in later videos how those tactical modifiers are used. When you flip a leader, the leader is on its passive side. When a leader is passive, it cannot issue or receive orders, cannot move. Movement factor is 0, except in reaction to enemy movement. It has to pass a strategy rating check in order to flip back to its normal side. Also, one last thing, you notice that here the number is golden with a little S before it. That means that it's a special tactical rating. That leader is superior. It allows a unit stacked with him to do more things than a standard leader. When a leader is passive, his tactical rating reverts to normal tactical rating. All right, let's take a look at the map. The map has a standard hexagonal grid overlaid on it to help with movement, range computation, common radius, and so forth. Each hex contains a certain type of terrain and sometimes has special terrain on its sides. For example, here, those X's are clear terrain, but they are elevated with respect to the X's around them. They have a slope X side. Here is a river X side. The minor rivers are here. We have Arroyo Seco, the dry riverbeds that are depicted in brown, roads, woods, bridges, fords, village, hexagons that give some cover. And then we have different levels that show that the elevation here is increasing. In Albuera, it's 10 meters per level. When there is a double level increase like here, you have a steep slope that shows a 20-meter increase between those two hexagons. The terrain effects table will give you all the information you need to maneuver. We have all the different terrains that appear on the map that are listed, and the columns show you the number of movement factor that it costs to enter the terrain, or the increase in cost in case it's a hex side. For different types of units, infantry, cavalry, artillery, leaders, or units in skirmish cream formation. Then it gives you the cover in case that terrain provides cover against fire, or blocks the line of sight, or creates a blind zone. Then it tells you if the terrain creates a modifier with respect to assault. And finally, the last two columns show whether or not a charge or pursuit is a load. If there is a big red X, means it's not a load. And then you have certain modifiers to a TM check for a unit receiving a charge when the charge crosses that particular hex side. Some special rules at the bottom for special terrains there. When a terrain is indicated in green, that means that the unit must enter general order to move into that terrain. Finally, when a terrain is in yellow, that means that it's difficult terrain. Unit must take a TEM check after entering or crossing that terrain to see if it is disordered or if it maintained good order. So this is a terrain effects table that's at the back of the battle booklet. All right, the player 8 charts, double-sided, On one side, you have all the TEM modifiers for the different types of checks you can take. Stacking limits. Here you have the cost of formation change. A casualty table in case a leader is forced to make a casualty check. The effects of weather on different aspects of the game. Restrictions for units status. Restrictions for out of command units. Restrictions for poorly trained units. On the other side, you have the melee combat table, combat strength multipliers, combat die roll modifiers, a legend explaining the results of that table, legend here explaining the results of the special result that you obtain sometimes when you roll on that table. This is a fatigue reduction chart to reduce the fatigue of a formation. Summary of the results of a fire check when a unit fires on another unit. Here you have the fire value modifiers for infantry and for artillery, and here you have a spiked gun tables to determine whether or not the guns have been spiked after being attacked while unlimbered for an artillery unit. So pretty straightforward. And finally, leader cards. Here is a British and a French leader. Let's take a look at the British one first. This particular card corresponds to the division leader counter to this one. So when that card is played, that leader has a chance of being activated along with all its subordinate units and leaders. On the card you have the name of the leader, a picture of the counter, same color of the belt here. This is the strategy rating of the leader, the same as the one on his counter. And here you have a special effects for that particular leader. For example, this one, when it is activated, if Colborne, Houghton or Abercrombie are in range, they can also be activated when this card is played. Now the other card I want to show you was the card of an army leader. This is Sue from the Armée d'Andalousie in Albuera. The special effects part of the card here shows how many orders that leader can issue, and also that he can activate his aide de camp when they are in range.